Excited to be launching our first night of social live. Of course, we had to sort out a little technology snag, but it was quickly sorted. So we're thankful for that, and we're glad you're all here. We have to monitor Instagram separately. The comments from Instagram don't come through the streaming application. So I'm going to pop that open over here so I can see any folks that are on Instagram. And profile. I'm at my profile. Okay. Let me.
So there's a message there.
Oh, if you ended it on Instagram, then this is expected. Try creating a new Instagram stream. Your feed on Instagram. Okay. So Elizabeth, if you can please try starting up a new Instagram stream. It looks like that's what we're going to have to do. We're getting an error message that it didn't start. And the link I saw here only went to our profile. So I don't know if that was part of it, but shooting a message over as well. I'm going to remove this one because I definitely don't see it on our Instagram account either. Okay, I'm going to let Elizabeth sort that out. I am going to take a look here in our chat. So welcome everyone. If you could please enter in to the chat, everyone who's here, just a hello and where you're here from. And also, if you wouldn't mind letting us know if you're an educator, a parent, or an advocate, or maybe you're a couple of those things. We'd love to know who we've got in the room and what your different roles are so that we can kind of orient ourselves to that. And it looks like we've got a few people in. So we are here tonight at your service. We are here to really answer questions, try to help you troubleshoot challenging situations, provide tips and support and things. So we would love for you to just introduce yourself. And then if you have questions, if you came with a case tonight that you would like to share, please feel free to just pop that into the comments of whichever social you're on, and then it should come into our feed. And I am also trying to adjust my screen right now, guys. Sorry, but I'm trying to. Make sure that everything's set so that you can see everything that we share as well. Aha, now we have a live on Instagram. Well, maybe I'll go to it on my phone.
So, excuse me, we have Valerie from Missouri, and she's all three, and here is an educator tonight.
Wonderful. All three. That's great, Valerie. That is wonderful. So did you come with any questions tonight or anything that you'd like some support with? Or are you just planning to listen in? And I know for a lot of our West Coast folks, this is a little bit of a tight squeeze getting on here by 4 o'clock because a lot of them are dismissing students at about this time. So.
And we have Eva from Las Vegas.
Oh, wonderful. We were just there, Eva, about a week and a half ago. We have a grandson there, and so we were there visiting. It was a little toasty, but you know that. Wonderful. And are you here as a parent, educator, advocate? Just trying to see if we can get our...
She said, I don't have a specific question, but have learned so much for you that I love to listen to all things Bob. Thank you. It's very kind.
Thank you. And Valerie's here from, Missouri. Great. Okay, well, we will, there we go. Now I can see the live on, I'm going to try and take it off of my, there we go, off of my phone and onto the computer where I can see. Oh, it must be delayed because I could see you talking on Instagram and you weren't talking next to me. So there was a little delay there. Okay. Miss Pink Behavior joined us. Welcome. I'm going to go ahead, I think, and I'll share these comments online so you all know who's here as well. So there's Valerie and Eva is here with us, or Ava, and she is an advocate also. And we have Lisa from Ohio, school-based BCBA, parent of young adult daughter with level 3 ASD. Okay, all right, wonderful. I think many of us who are in this field are in it with multiple hats that often started as a parent or just ended up as a parent. So it's great to have you all here. And okay, and that was, so Ms. Pink Behavior, if you don't mind sharing with us where you're from and whether you're here as an educator, parent, advocate, or more than one of those, that would be awesome. And then we are happy to move in with answering any questions. And if not, we're happy to talk about, any particular concepts that you've heard us teach about that you're really interested in, that you'd like to hear more. Living as a Lisa. Oh, did I pop? Oh yeah, I did pop hers up there. Okay. Okay. And then I guess I will pop, for now, I'll pop a banner up there. Did that? No. Oh, maybe it does and it just doesn't show it to us. Thank you guys for being so patient while we learn doing this the first time. We've wanted to do this for a long time. And we finally just decided, even though we're not experts, we need to just go ahead and do it so that we can make ourselves available. So here we go. Okay. All right. So any particular concepts that you'd like us to talk about tonight? Maybe you heard us present on something, and typically depending on if it was a full day training or a conference, there's always more to talk about and to explain. Or if you're working with a particular group of kids that are a certain age and certain things are just kind of typical or common and you'd like to have some input on that as well, we're happy to do that also. Okay, so Valerie, oh, you're here on YouTube too. Oh, okay, haha, gotcha. Okay, great. Well, then that's wonderful because we are seeing your comments under Valerie on the main screen. So that's wonderful. What to do as a behavior consultant when school wants fast solutions. That's all of them, right? And we can't hardly blame them. And at the same time, often the solutions aren't fast. You want to jump on that one?
Yeah, we were on a podcast this afternoon, and that question kind of came up as well. And one of the things that we are really emphasizing is that when you look at a child and you look at behavior, that behavior is important, of course, but the behavior is not the problem, is what we like to say. You may think of it as part of the problem, but it's not the direct problem. And the problem, as we see it, is the nervous system. What is happening in the nervous system? And so you can take any type of behavior and off-task behavior. You can probably think of a lot of different behaviors, right? Running, shouting, using profanity, just not starting your lesson, not taking directions, refusal, etc., etc. It goes on and on, right? And then even in some more dangerous type of behaviors. But what we have to do is really think about the fact that what is happening in that child's nervous system at that particular time. Do they have the capacity to be able to meet the demands or expectations that we have for them? Do they have access to their thinking brain, their cortex at that time? And typically when we see behavior, we know that we don't have access. So to answer your question, we have to really start with what can we do? And I'll let Doris take over and maybe talk about a couple of those things. What can we do to start making progress on a nervous system that lacks maybe skills, lacks the child doesn't have access at that particular time, or doesn't have the capacity to even meet the expectations that we're asking them because of their nervous system may be in fight, flight, or freeze. It may be due to just the stress of the day, the cognitive and physiological load on their nervous system. It could be due to a whole lot of things. And so that's why it takes time. You have to be patient. And we talk a lot in our trainings about when we talk about compliance doesn't mean it's really working, right? Compliance, we can't change the nervous system through rewards and consequences. Although we can still use rewards and consequences to get compliance. And when we're really working on the nervous system, then we know that oftentimes it takes time to do that. But we have some ways that you can speed it up for sure by using certain strategies, techniques, and by regulating your own nervous system as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what would you like? Did you want me to?
You want to maybe add a couple of things,
strategies?
A couple of strategies that would help. If we do these on a regular basis, we know that we are working on the nervous system in a way that we will see change. Sometimes quickly, actually. Absolutely. Sometimes after a couple of weeks, sometimes after a couple of days, sometimes after a couple of years, honestly. So you just have to be really patient with this. But, one thing that's wonderful about this approach is that you're making progress. You know that it is working, and that's why We need to talk about some of these approaches that are very simple for you to do, regardless of what role you're in, and will help. You'll know that you're working on building skills, building regulation, building the ability to just be able to engage with you, build connection with you, relationship with you, and so on. And you'll know that you are making a difference, and after a while, you will see it.
So while I'm sharing a couple of things here, would each of you who are here just enter where have you seen us? Like, did you see us do a conference session? Were you in a full day training? What was the context? So that way we'll know kind of what extent that you have seen us train on certain topics. And welcome, Pam. We have Pam here from New York, upstate New York, Director of Student Support Services. Welcome. Feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat, Pam, and we'll be happy to touch on those as soon as we're just kind of speaking in general about like some of the key things that to do when a school wants results really quickly. They want an answer now that works quickly. So kind of going off of what Rick said, I think that one of the core things that we teach, that all of you who have seen us, probably no matter what sort of context that you've been to see us in, one of the core things we recommend is the dosing process. Really, the dosing process is the foundational piece of engaging with the child in these short relational interactions that feel safe, that don't push in on them too much. But what they do is we're essentially, think of it this way. The very first thing we have to do is we have to train the nervous system to not feel a sense of threat or a sense of protection, that when we engage with that child, that they are safe. And so by engaging in dosing, and I'll model for you what that is, we can really affect their ability to be receptive and open and able to make change. So when I talk about dosing, what I'm thinking of is, I'll give you an example. I'm the teacher, I say, everybody take out your journals, please. Get your pencil out, and I'd like you to write about the prompt on the board. And as I'm flowing around the room, checking in on students, I notice that JJ doesn't have a journal out, doesn't have a pencil out. And old Miss B, when I was in my first years of teaching, would have walked over and said, JJ, you don't have your journal out. Where's your pencil? Your friends have already gotten started. You need to get started or you're going to miss recess, all those sorts of things. But when we're dosing, what we want to do is we want to move in with empathy and neutral language. And then we want to follow that by some sort of curious question, or just a question that doesn't feel like they're being quizzed, right? So I might say, so JJ, it seems like getting your journal out is kind of hard right now. Can you help me understand what's going on? And now I didn't say, why don't you have it out, and make JJ come up with an explanation, right? Because for kids who have learned to be in this state, answering the why question is very difficult. And typically it's the first one we ask them. But I'm not going to ask why. I'm just going to say, hey, is there any way I can help? And JJ may say, I'm fine. Get away from me. And here's my response. All right, I hear you. I'll be back in a couple minutes. I'm going to go check on somebody else, and I'm going to be smiling. I'm going to be having a pleasant tone in my voice. I've got to let JJ know that as I move away, I'm not angry. We still have, right, a good what we call unconditional positive regard. And I move away and I go help another student. I maybe shuffle some papers around somewhere. I need to look like I'm doing something else on purpose, because JJ needs to know I'm not doing one of these numbers here where I'm looking over my shoulder and monitoring him. Why is that so important? It's important because JJ, I like to call it his thermometer, just right. The red was rising. His thermometer just went up, and we need to allow time for that stress response system, right? That activation to come back down a little bit. So I move away. I might read fake email, right? Actually, that was one of my go-to things. I'd go pretend to read an email or two, and then I'd cycle back around the classroom again, and I'm going to come back by again. Wow, JJ, it seems like there's still something kind of stressful about getting your journal out or writing anything in it. What's up? Is there something I can do to help? I told you I'm fine. Get away from me. Okay, all right. I'll check back with you in a little bit. And I'm out again. Right now, I might do this 3 or 4 times. This is assuming it's the first time I'm doing it. Then maybe the 4th time I might pivot to something like, gosh, how about a walk to the drinking fountain? I'm not going to keep pushing, right, with that dosing. But the next day, it's going to be the same type of engagement, right, where I come up. And now we can probably assume a couple of things. One is that we can assume that the response that JJ is having is showing us that the minute I started walking in his direction, he was likely going into an alert or state of his stress response being activated. And so over time, one of the things that I'm doing is that I am desensitizing his nervous system so that he's not in that hyperarousal kind of over reactive is how we would think of it, a state where he's seeing everything I do as threatening. He's anticipating a lot of negative things. I think a lot of times we've kind of ignored this issue of what does a child anticipate when we come walking toward them, right? We all have feelings in our body. When someone walks toward us, typically we have, oh, good, here comes so-and-so, or I think I'll head somewhere else right now, right? And that's because of what we've experienced over time. And it might be that specific individual, or it might just be adults in general. And so what you want to do then is you want to give that dose, move away, give the dose, move away, give the dose, move away. And what you're teaching the nervous system is it can become activated, and then it can return to a calm state again, and become activated and return to a calm state. And ultimately, eventually, I can just promise you, like I would sign in blood, that you will see change with this approach. You will see over time. And for some students, it might take 4 weeks. We had a teacher share a story with us one time at the end of a training. She raised her hand and said, "Can I share something?" And I knew who she was. I knew she wasn't someone who was rooting for us to come to their district and train. But of course, I was going to allow her to share. So I said, sure, go ahead and share. She said, "I was one of your biggest opponents, and I did not want you to come to our district and train." She said, "I am now signing up to substitute next year because I'm retiring, and I want to come back and I want to use what you've taught me with students." She told us a story about how a young man in her class that year, that was going to be her last year of teaching. She had one of the toughest, if not the toughest kiddo in the school. And he would not do anything, and he would sit with his hood over his head. This was a 2nd grader, 3rd grader. And she said, we assigned an educational assistant who had had this training to dose him 3, 4, 5 times a day. She would just come in where he was sitting and try and dose him actually with something positive, like, "Wow, I noticed that you're sitting quietly right now while your peers work, I really appreciate that," or "How'd you do that?" Anything similar dosing, right? To even, because we can use dosing in the positive as well. And in 4 days, she started to see a difference. In 4 days, he started coming out from under the hood. He started to engage with peers a little bit. Over a period of just 2 or 3 weeks, she started to see significant change with him. So the thing with dosing is that the more adults that you can get doing dosing with a particular child, the more impact that you can have, because the more consistency and predictability that they experience across their entire environment is going to have an influence on how quickly their nervous system builds that sense of anticipation that I was talking about, right? Just think of it as we are purposefully building a new sense of anticipation in that child of adults are safe, they're here to support me, they're here to help me. I go from feeling like when Miss B walks over to me, she's going to humiliate me, call me out, threaten a consequence, all of these things, to she's going to walk over and say, hey, this looks hard. How can I help? And then the next adult in the next class is going to say, hey, this looks hard. How can I help? And then pretty soon that feels really safe. So Liz, thank you for, I have to share Liz's comment. She said they tried the approach with a kinder student yesterday who was an outward disruptor. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And trust me, your trying was doing. You were doing it. You all were doing it. And if you continue to do it, you will see the results.
I think one of the things that I wanted to add to all of this too is that what Doris described is what you're doing is you're repatterning the stress response system. With a little one like the kinder, again, the more doses you can't dose the child enough. And even times like with a kinder, that might just be a smile. It might just be asking them any type of question at all, just a curious question. Those are all doses. Just a touch on the shoulder. So these are all doses of relational stress that are at they're moderate doses of stress. They do activate the stress response, but in a way that is regulating after time. And working with kinders, I used to just sit down with them and just talk to them, and just sit down like I am and kind of lean in a little bit toward them. Now, here's the key. I was regulated, wasn't I? You've got to be regulated. If you're not feeling regulated at that time for any reason at all, don't have somebody else do it, right? Or wait. But if you're regulated, you're going to share that felt sense of safety with them, and you just keep doing it. And you're going to see, you will see change, and sometimes very quickly, especially with younger children. The other thing I wanted to just bring out for all of you, if you want to see change more quickly, you've got to have this. You've got to have this. And this is a proactive regulation plan.
Mm-hmm.
You guys all know that in our schools, and this is not a criticism, because I was there for many years and I did the same thing. We oftentimes are just chasing behavior. In other words, we react. We wait till the behavior occurs, and then we make our intervention rather than being proactive. Now, here's what I also want you to hear when I'm talking about proactivity. So if I know that a child is going to show a behavior when I ask them to meet some expectation, let's say sit quietly. The expectation is just sit quietly and listen right now. Okay. That's the expectation, right? And if I begin to notice that when I look at that behavior, and maybe the behavior is getting up or talking, doesn't make any difference what the behavior is, and I walk that behavior back to what was happening right before the behavior. What was the demand or expectation on the child right before the behavior occurred? And if you watch this long enough, what you guys are all going to see are patterns. You're going to see patterns. And oftentimes you're going to see patterns because the child is either just in a dysregulated state. That could be for a lot of reasons. Or the child doesn't have the neurocognitive skills to be able to meet the expectation that you're asking them to meet. If I have ADHD, let's just take an example. As an adult, if I have ADHD and you ask me to sit quietly and listen for a long period of time, and I happen to feel like I'm just going to come out of my skin, and now I'm going to start talking to Doris, and now we're talking about the sensory load. We're talking about the cognitive load on just having to wait, right? So I might impulsively do something. Is this making sense? So here's what I want you to think about, is that with when you see behavior, you'll typically see patterns. You don't necessarily need to know, well, you do, but we can talk more about that too. But you don't always need to know why the child is not meeting the expectation. But there's going to be a reason, and the reason is going to have something to do with the nervous system. So what we have to do is that we have to work with our children that we know are going to have difficulty meeting expectations, and work with them in a proactive way, meaning work with them when they're in a state of regulation. And this is what we often say, that oftentimes what you want to do is you want to get them the first thing before class. Like if you have somebody that could work with them on regulation and understanding these expectations are going to be asked of you today, and how can you do what you're being asked to do, and if you can't do that, then what do you need to do? You don't need to show behavior. Now we have a system set up where they can have an adult that they can go to that can help them re-regulate and stay regulated.
So we've got another question here from Liz. What would you do during dosing if the child is being disruptive to the other students and teacher, not just sitting, not complying, and you can't really ignore it? That doesn't happen, does it? Yeah. Liz, my first thought when I read that was that, that might not be the time that you start the dosing with that student. If it is a behavior that you know that going up and engaging with that student is probably going to end up, even if you're in empathy and you're, it's not going to curtail something that you have to curtail, right? Then you may remove the student from the area. You may do what's needed at that time to preserve the learning environment. But what you want to start doing is you want to start dosing that student actually in the way I mentioned earlier, at times when they're not that far gone, right? So pick times when they're just barely, the most effective use of dosing is as a child is starting to head off the rails, right? You can see them starting to dysregulate a little bit. You can see them starting to, pick at something or tap on something, or you can tell they're struggling, their cues. And even I think a really powerful use of dosing is pick times when that child is doing something that they are supposed to do, that they are meeting expectations, and use the dosing phrase to notice that. Some of you may have heard us talk about praise. I'm gonna dip sideways a little bit here for a second, and praise comes up a lot because it's written into plans, it's written into, support plans for kids and so forth. And the thing is that a lot of our kids that struggle in these ways, accepting praise feels far too vulnerable for them. When you praise me, that means that, well, let's be honest, essentially praise is a form of judgment, isn't it? And if I accept that, I'm allowing you to judge me that my behavior right now is acceptable and meeting standards. That means I'm making myself vulnerable to your judgment of me, period. And you'll find out I'm not such an amazing kid at some point. And then you'll reject me. You'll be disappointed in me. You'll, fill in the blank. And so when you think about dosing then and doing it at positive moments when the child is meeting expectations, it gives you a chance to help make this interaction really feel very safe again for them by saying, JJ, I noticed you got your name on your paper. How'd you get started on that? Right? Or, hey, I noticed you did 2 math problems, it looked like you probably had to work pretty hard at that. How'd you get started? Any kind of curious question that you can ask them, but you're following the exact same pattern. Because what ultimately happens is the nervous system recognizes the pattern. It doesn't matter, right? The context as far as how impactful it is. So if you do that when they are meeting expectation, then the likelihood that when you approach, when the child is struggling, right, when they're being disruptive, they might be a lot more receptive to it. But the thing I would avoid doing, I guess, I'm imagining this situation unfolding. I would avoid, if you can, dosing in situations where you pretty much know you're going to have to then just move to the next step, which is we're taking you to the office, we're doing whatever, because you don't want those things to become connected. So I would keep the dosing in the we're just barely getting off track or doing something to meet expectations at first. Once your relationship with the child is solid and connected and you know they're feeling safe, and then you can pretty much dose under almost any circumstance because they know that they have your acceptance, your approval, your connection, and then it feels a little bit safer. But especially coming into the classroom as an outside person, maybe you get called into a situation. If I felt like I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to walk this student to the office or some other like consequence or end result that isn't going to feel real positive, I might hold the dosing for another time. But that brings us back to the proactive part that Rick talked about, right? Is that our plan for the student can't just be that Mrs. Support Person gets called when we're going off the rails. It also has to mean Mrs. Support Person is pushing in at a scheduled time. Every day at 10:10, she pops into JJ's classroom, and whatever he's doing, she walks over and says, wow, I noticed that you got this thing done, or I noticed that you're sitting in your seat. That's kind of hard sometimes. How did you do that? And so we take advantage of those opportunities to proactively dose.
This one too, by the way, Liz, what I would ask you to do is just think about if this is happening on a regular basis. If, in other words, so the child was being disruptive, so that's the behavior, right? So thinking about when was this just a one-time occurrence, or do you see kind of a pattern where the child does this at times, at certain times, or just every day or whatever on a regular basis? You want to ask yourself, what was I asking the child to do right before that behavior occurred, or what was happening right before that behavior occurred? Maybe it was just play or something like that, or maybe, but think about what was the antecedent, because that's your problem right there. That's your problem. And if you knew that, and you'll see this, I mean, I don't have time to talk about this, but we all know that we're all creatures of habit, aren't we? You'll see if you look at behavior and not being able to meet and tie it to expectations, you'll know that a lot of kids at certain times of the day can't meet expectations, or just they're fatigued and they can't meet expectations. And like Dora said, we want to get them proactively, but we want to identify what those expectations are. Then we can talk about helping you build the skills with those kids, the skills to be able to meet the expectations. If you can do that, if you can build those neurocognitive skills, and we can help you with that, then we can see the behavior will gradually extinguish.
Absolutely, Liz. So Pam asked here, hold on, let me see if this replaces the other one. Yes, it does. Talk more about nervous system reason for not being regulated.
Well, the nervous system can be, I know, look at the time, my gosh.
I know, that's okay.
So the nervous system can be, okay, give me the question again. So
yes,
sure.
Yeah. Talk more about the nervous system reason for not being regulated. And by the way, I have to point out to you that you have a visitor from Guatemala.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. That is awesome.
I was really super surprised to see Rick's Spanish teacher is on from
Thank
Guatemala,
so
which is just super fun to see you here.
That's awesome. Well, let me talk about the nervous system. Well, my nervous system just got happy there for a minute, but got activated in a very positive way. The nervous system, um,
It's right here.
for being, talk more about nervous system reason for being,
Not
for
being
not
regulated.
being regulated.
Mhm.
There could be a number of reasons for the nervous system to not be regulated. One could be trauma. One could be just an activation of the trauma, which could happen because trauma is a sensory, it's an event. Trauma affects the nervous system, your emotional state, your physiological state, sensations in your body, etc. Right? And so trauma can happen at any given time. And typically, though, it does happen when there's an association between, doesn't have to be this way. It can just happen for reasons unknown, but if there's an association, for example, if I start associating, let me give you a really quick example. There was a young man who had significant trauma. He had been abused by another man. This was a child that had been abused by another man, and the teachers decided to put him in a room with a male teacher who was excellent at working with kids that were showing a lot of behavior and trauma, right? And they brought him in to this man that had this excellent record, and the child that just started attacking the man right away. Well, they found out that the reason why he was attacking the man was that the teacher that he was attacking was wearing the same cologne of the man who had abused him. So trauma then is a sensory response, right? So it could be, and so there could be an association with something or somebody, some smell, some sound of some voice. There could be anything when it comes to trauma that activates it. Trauma can also be activated by the way that we talk to the child sometimes. We may not be that regulated ourselves at times. Of course you're not. You can't be regulated all the time, especially when you're a teacher or an administrator and you're under a lot of stress, okay? Or a parent. We just can't be regulated all the time. So if you're dysregulated, we know that the child oftentimes can, we have a scientific term for it. It's called neuroception. The child can see and senses unconsciously that you're maybe upset with them. The child also, so that can cause dysregulation. The other thing that can cause dysregulation is that the child has a private logic of thinking about you and about the world and about others, that, you're going to reject me. I'm not good enough. I have to be perfect for you to love me.
You're going to embarrass me.
You're going to embarrass me, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it could be that. It could be something they're thinking about, and a belief that they have that may not be true at all, but it's their perception. So there's a number of reasons. And so for that reason, I think that when we talk about intervention with children, I'm not looking for the nervous system reason so much as I'm also again looking at what were we asking the child to do? What was the antecedent? I'm looking at that. And I'm looking at that there's certain things that we have to do because Doris has developed a tool, decoding your survival signals, right? And the thing about it is that trauma is also preverbal. In other words, there's no language in trauma, right? Mm-hmm. That when a traumatic event occurs, the right and left hemispheres lose coordination with each other, and there is no language literally in trauma, right? And so oftentimes these children can't tell you why they did what they did. So that's why problem solving sheets aren't that great, right? Because they can't really tell you. They can come up with something, but they can't really tell you. Mm-hmm. And so again, asking them to tell you what's going on is very difficult for them to do. But Doris came up with this, and we had already, I love this instrument. I'll let Doris tell you about. But the thing about it is that having the child draw something draw a picture, for example, of an animal that represents when you're angry, and maybe a place that represents when you are calm or happy or whatever, right? And when you're asking them these questions, when you're having them draw these things out, that's a sensory response, is it not? That's a right hemisphere sensory response. And when that happens, and you then ask them why they drew what they drew, that's a left hemisphere response. And there's research that shows that this creates more coordination. And in the end, it's going to help you create more regulation. So Doris came up with this instrument where kids that could not tell you what was happening, why they did what they did, and why they were what triggered them to be dysregulated, they could actually draw a picture, or they could actually circle sentences that were already there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of you have mentioned that you own one of our books already. And if you do own the book, you have access to the tool that Rick is talking about in the resource portal. This is like my dream tool. If I had had this when I was running programs for kids with super challenging behavior for most of 20 years, it would have been my dream tool. And essentially what it does is that it has 4 pages each for 4 different states. So it's actually 16 pages plus a front page. So the front page is like a first person narrative of, some things happened to me when I was younger, and it caused some of the wires for survival and protection to be stronger in my brain, and some of, the wires for other things like thinking about how other people feel, or so it's a very non-clinical first person narrative. But then it goes into the 4 different states, and each of those 4 pages are like, I'll take flight, for example. It might say, when I go into protection and I'm in flight, this might be what you see on the outside. And the kiddos there's some phrases there, right? Of like, I feel like everyone is staring at me. I might look like I'm trying to scare you away from me. A lot of things that, this is incredibly thoughtfully put together to really bring to the surface things that we know that a lot of kids are feeling, but they will never say out loud to us if they don't have permission, essentially, by it being there on the paper. So there's two kind of obstacles that we have overcome with this tool, I feel like. I know all of you, if I could have you raise your hand in here right now, if I said, how many of you have said to a kid, hey, what's going on when you get really, upset, and can you tell me what are you feeling, how we could help you? I don't know. Well, no, we really want to help you. I don't know. Right. And they don't know. That's the really difficult thing, is that they may not have the vocabulary. They may not even have the internal awareness to understand what's going on inside of them. So what these pages do is that they, first of all, don't require of the child generation of those ideas. It only requires recognition. And then the second part of it is that, like I referenced a minute ago, is that we are seeing a lot of students that will circle something like, I want to hurt all the kids who are getting the rewards. I can think of a lot of students who would have never told me that, even if they were thinking it. But when it's on the paper, that means we've already told them it's okay to just be honest and authentic and tell us, this is how I'm feeling. And if you haven't read either one of the books yet, there's a picture in the book. It's a computer screen, and it shows an email that we received from a special ed director in the Midwest, who sent me pictures of this tool done by this young man. She said, I've used this with 2 boys that we've been working, and she told me later, I think they've been working about 8 months to try to figure out what was going on with this young man. And he would have really, behavior that would end up being explosive at some point. and they couldn't get anything. For 8 months, they've been trying. She sat down with him with this tool, and on just one page, he identified 10 of the items that he was experiencing. It can be things like, I feel like my body's just vibrating all over, or I feel like I have to just run really fast, or something bad is going to happen, or I'm in a control when bad things happen. Right? So there's a lot of the things that we know probably might be going on, but that they would never put the words to those things themselves. This special ed director and many other now school staff have told us that, you know, having this tool and being able to really get at what is really going on for this child has transformed their school experience for 2 reasons. Not just because we now understand them, because that's really helpful to us, right? We can help them if we understand what's going on with them. But it's also transformed their school experience because they feel like we understand them. They feel like we get it. And the little boy wrote, I think he was a 3rd or 4th grader, he wrote, "At my old school," and he drew a picture, "they used to put me in a seclusion room and hold the door and laugh at me." And he drew a picture of that happening. And he said, "But now you get me and you understand my brain and you give me time and space to calm down." Something along those lines. So it was a very touching. Rick will attest, like I get teared up every time I get one of these emails or phone calls. But when I think about, like, okay, as a 4th grader, we unlocked the door. Is he going to have a different middle school? Is he going to have a different high school experience because of having this be facilitated for him to finally be able to tell adults, yes, this is what I'm experiencing? And so there's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. There is a younger student's version, there's an older student's version, and there is an adult version. Because we even had administrators telling us, I want to do this with my staff before they do it with any kids. And so we developed an adult version as well. And I actually think it's an incredible tool for staff to be more introspective about maybe some of the things that are making certain situations with certain students more challenging for them, to begin to recognize what's happening inside of them when things get stressful. So all 3 of those are available in the resource portal for either one of the books. We had another question that came up over here in the Instagram chat. No, that's not true. We had a couple of people join us in the Instagram chat. Folks, anyone who just joined us, and I believe we might have a few more folks out elsewhere in other social land, if you could please just enter where you're here from. If you're a parent, you're an advocate, you're an educator, we would love to know that. And then please pop any questions that you would like to into the chat, because we would love to be able to still answer them here. I know we're 3 minutes to the hour, but if somebody else has an additional question, we'll be happy to answer that. And then I'm just going to ask you all, in case anybody ends up hopping off, if you have to go right at the hour, we would love for you to spread the word. I know that you are not the only dozen educators that need answers to these tough situations. Or you need some ways of, maybe you kind of get it, but colleagues don't, or you need to go out into schools and you need to help people start making this shift. Or you need to help a school understand your child. One of the things that Rick and I always try to do, there's 2 layers. When I'm teaching, there's 2 layers always. My brain just does it automatically now. The top layer is I'm answering your question. The underneath layer is I'm equipping you. I want to equip you to have the frame ups, the language, all the ways of explaining this that you can go out and they're useful to you in being able to share these concepts with other people who really need to be able to understand them. So Let's see, Pam Bell, if you own one of our books, don't you? I'm pretty sure we sent you a book because you wrote an endorsement for our first book. If so, you scan that little QR code in the back of the book, and that is where you will find your way into the resource portal. And if you don't, email us, okay? I'm going to pop, I don't know if this, I'm going to try popping up a banner here.
Since you didn't have her login or something for the portal.
Okay, this is a page that just gives you, if you want to take a screenshot, this gives you information about where to find the books if you don't have them, as well as our trainings. But let me pop back in here to the comments. And what if I do not have my resource portal login? Oh, you just email us. Anybody here who hasn't made it into the resource portal, the QR code is all over the back of the book, especially in the FBA book. It's a little less frequent in Facing the Fantasy book. But we want to make sure that you can get in. So if you have a struggle getting in, you just email us and we will help you. Absolutely, Ava. Thank you so much. And Sean, great to see you here. Instructional aid in high school, work with ADHD and autism kids, mostly, but in classrooms with, oh, okay, reactive attachment disorder. Wonderful. Well, you definitely be putting this to use for sure. And let me see if we had anybody else here introducing themselves in Instagram. Doesn't look like we had any new introductions. Got a couple new people joined. Anybody else that brought a question tonight? We want to invite that question right now before we sign off. We're happy to take one more, but please spread the word. Spread the word to throughout your district. We don't care if you take the links and shoot it out to your whole district. We want folks to know that this is here as a resource for them to get answers for those tough situations that they're dealing with. So absolutely, Ava and Pam, absolutely. I'm curious to know too, for the East Coast folks, if we end up bumping this to be 8 to 9, is that doable for you all? Because I have a hunch that our Pacific time folks, it's very challenging for you to, for them to get on at 4 p.m. I think they're dismissing kids. Oh, that question in Instagram, I think that might be the one that you're, is it Lisa? Was it plugged in? Let me make sure that I think I know which one we're talking about here. Were you referencing the one that was entered, looks like it's entered by our profile, Lisa, but it's different, and it was about, I think it might be the first one we answered. What to do as a behavior consultant when schools want fast solutions. Is that the one? Yes, yeah. So we did answer that one first, but essentially, it was the good news, bad news answer, that we're working with the nervous system, and sometimes it responds quickly and sometimes it doesn't. But one of the things we will say is that I guess in a way you could spin this to the positive. As I'm thinking about it right now, you could spin this to the positive in working with the school of the more adults that we get on board using these practices means the more repetitions that we're going to get with that nervous system, the more quickly we're going to get those repetitions. And the repetitions with the nervous system are the way in which we are going to change most of these patterns.
Yeah, one other thing I would say too is that your regulation, your own regulation and working on your own regulation, and I want to just give you a really quick thing that you could try right now is maybe even this evening is just to maybe sit in your favorite chair or whatever and just do a scan of your body and just like, where do I feel tension at in my body? Where, you know, and it could be any place in your body. It could be my tension's usually up here around my shoulders, my back of my neck, and so on. And that's where I hold my own trauma. And And maybe you've never gone through trauma, but the thing about it is becoming more aware of what's happening in your nervous system, in your body. Like, what emotions am I feeling right now? Am I feeling any sensations right now? And so on and so forth. Helps you increase your awareness of this. And it's called interoceptive awareness. And why is it so important? Well, it's important for you because if you begin to notice this more, you will not start to notice when you're getting a bit dysregulated, when you're getting frustrated and things like that. Well, if you can notice those things, you can change them, can't you? But if you can't notice that I'm just tired right now and this kid's driving me crazy and I'm just, when you start feeling that way and you notice that, now you can do a reset, and we will teach you how to do a reset on where you can move right out of that state into a regulated state. And the other thing that's important here is we can teach our children this as well. Even the kinders, those that are working with kinders, you can teach them, what are you feeling right now in your body? Well, I'm mad right now. I'm angry. Well, where are you feeling that? And to help them to really begin to become aware of that. And then let's talk about how we can give you information on how you can help them recognize that more. And if they can recognize that more, you can help them reset. And this is probably one of the most important things especially that you can do for yourself too, for your overall health, for your mental health, for your physical health, for your stress level, for your resilience, and so on. So try this out, and you'll begin to really become more you'll notice more of the tension in your body, and you can literally change that by just making that shift.
And I just will chime in with what Rick said about that we will, in a future session, we will share with you all about, I think it's so important that the message that has gone out across a lot of professions, education being one of them, that, the staff are the ones that need to be the regulated ones, has come with a bit of a burden that has not come with necessarily the skill building that needed to go along with it. And what we know is that a lot of the things that have been shared out there, believe me, I've been to every self-care session and teacher, self-regulation session at every conference we've ever gone to, and mostly walk out kind of disappointed because it's a lot of the same things. And I do think, yes, having a plan, how are you going to unwind at night? You're going to take a run, you're going to, have a glass of wine, you're going to whatever, paint, draw, do things you enjoy. Those are all good things. I'm not going to say don't do those things. But what causes a cumulative buildup of stress to the point that we hit burnout, which is where many of our educators are now, is by not knowing how to do a nervous system reset. It is by doing the reset repeatedly, frequently, often when we need it, that we are able to kind of reboot our system and not hold that. Think about all that. Think about the stress of each situation that they face going into a container, and then it doesn't leave, and it doesn't leave, and it doesn't leave, as opposed to the resets, kind of like, you've got the spigot and you're allowing it out. And so we'll share that on a future session, maybe earlier in the hour, where we can take a little bit of time with it, because we really want people to be able to do this for yourselves as well as share this with others. Because I think there's just too many teachers out there right now, their health is suffering, their mental health is suffering, and it's because they don't understand that, what does it take to not just like, oh, I stayed calm during that crisis. That's different than I was in a state of resilience, what we refer to as HRV coherence, when the wind started to blow in the situation. And then when it was done, I was able to stop and purposefully do something that brings my nervous system back into sync, into regulation. And that is really great for our health and our wellness.
And dizzy.
Mhm. Let's see. So this is Sean, who works in Salem School District. And so we have a trauma-informed support group at school too. Oh, that's wonderful.
That's awesome.
Okay, for teachers and admin. Okay, absolutely. We will try to talk about that let's just plan to try to talk about it next week.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll share about that next week. So invite colleagues if you feel like they can benefit from that. Share the word. We'll spread the word in our social and by email. And we'd love, if any of you are not following us, I think our most active social these days is Instagram, although we're also on Facebook and all the places that you all have joined us from here. But especially I would say follow us on Instagram on our trauma and resilience training profile, because a lot of things that are coming up, like we'll be putting those out on social, and you'll also see a lot of we're showing up with our smiling faces more often these days, as well as putting helpful information out. So thank you all so much for being here. Carlos, thanks for showing up. So great to see you over there. Oh, looks like we had a couple other people joined in as well over here on Instagram too. So I was trying to monitor that. Just a little tip, guys. If you have another option beside Instagram to join the live, Instagram does not allow their chat feed to feed directly into our main chat here. That's why comments have had to be transferred over. So if you have Facebook or you have YouTube and you can jump on with that instead of Instagram, they just make it a little more cumbersome. So I'm trying to monitor the second computer, but I don't want to miss anybody's questions or anything. So if you have another option, join us there. But thank you so much for being here on our launch night. We're excited that some of you had questions. We hope this was helpful, and we'll look forward to being here next Wednesday. Okay, what is our listing on those platforms? Let me show you. How about if I just share screen and I'll show you? Okay, share screen. Oh, I see what it's doing here. Or a window. We'll do Chrome tab and then, we'll do window and do Chrome. Okay. But does it let me? Oh, it doesn't let me. It's only letting me share it. It won't let me go in and do things. Okay, let me type them in for you then. Move my window over here a little bit. For those of you who've already found us, please know that you can jump off if you need to go. We are so appreciative of having you here tonight. If there's anything you'd love to hear us talk about and you want to send us that information ahead, we're happy to touch on certain topics. You can send us an email. And let me get you our Facebook and our, we're baby TikTokers, I'm going to admit. We have a TikTok profile. I actually can't find my way back to it right now, and it has nothing on it, but it will soon. Just wasn't the place where we hung out a lot. So, okay, let me get this one and I'll drop it in here for you. And then, so this will be our Facebook page. Some people have followed me, and sometimes the posts go on there, but I can't guarantee 100% of the time that they're going to go on there. So I'm going to encourage you to follow the business one, because you might not always see everything. So there is and there's our granddaughter. Love you, Grandma and Grandpa. Hi, Ellie. She was excited to see us on social tonight. Okay, so here is our main Facebook. And is there another social that you all would like to be able to find and you haven't been able to find us? The TikTok, you won't find us. I named it I named it something that made sense. I cannot find that account. So I'm either going to have to ditch that account or something, but we'll get on there eventually. We just, it's going to take a little hunting, I think, to find it. So anybody else need any other socials? Facebook and Instagram are perfect. Awesome. Okay. All right. Well,
Thank you so much,
thanks so much for
everyone,
being
for
here.
joining us tonight.
Wonderful to have you all here, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody next week. Spread the word. Let folks know they've got a place to come. You did, Courtney. What is the address? Because every attempt I made to go into TikTok, they set me up with another new account. I have 4 of them. Okay, Rick Doris Bowman. Okay, I'll look at that and see if that was the original one that I did, because I'm going to delete all the other ones. Literally, I would go, oh, maybe I tried this email, and when I would go in to check for it, they would set me up with an account, an automatic account. So, see, we had a name. The name on it was like biology. No, it had something with the word behavior in it, and maybe that's linked to this one, but I'll look at that one and see what email is associated with it. So anyway, thank you, Courtney. Appreciate it. I'll see if that is us for the actual one we intend to use. If not, we might end up using that one anyway and just change the name to it. But we'll share out that as soon as we get that account really functioning, we'll share that out here on the lives as well. So great to see you all. Looks like Heathery and INETC. I'm guessing that stands for something, but I'm not figuring it out. We had Honeybee, we had Studio Pilates, we had quite a few people on Instagram. So anyway, everyone have a good night,
Yes,
and we'll
have a
see
good
you
night
next
and a good
week.
week.
Night, Ellie Bean.